They told you this your entire life, and you believed every word without ever questioning it once. Coaches said it loud and often. Fitness magazines printed it on every single page without exception. Friends who woke up early to meal prep swore it was the only right and responsible way. Eat before you move. Fuel the machine. Without food in your system, your body turns on itself. Your muscles will shrink, your blood sugar will crash, your performance will completely fall apart fast. And you will crawl back inside, having done far more damage to your body than any actual good. That warning followed you through every gym membership, every running phase, every attempt to build something genuinely better. And for years, maybe even decades, you believed it, without ever once stopping to ask if it was actually true. But this morning feels quietly and unexpectedly different from every other morning you have ever known before. Maybe it is a quiet restlessness. Maybe it is a mild rebellion that only surfaces in the early hours. Maybe the rules feel optional before the world wakes up and starts demanding anything from you again today. Or maybe you simply are not hungry yet, and for the first time you decide to find out. To finally see what actually happens when you step out the door without eating anything first. So you lace up your shoes, you step outside into the cool and quiet stillness of the early morning. The air carries that particular silence that belongs only to people awake before the world demands anything at all. Or maybe you walk into a gym, or head to a park, or unroll a mat in your living room. And within the first few minutes, something begins happening that absolutely nobody ever prepared you to expect at all.
Something the entire pre-workout nutrition industry has a strong financial interest in making sure you never discover for yourself. Instead of your legs turning heavy and slow, instead of your vision blurring at the very edges of things, you feel something completely unexpected moving through your body, like a quiet and steady electrical current right now. Your mind, wrapped in thick morning fog just minutes ago, begins to sharpen almost entirely on its own. Your body feels strangely lighter than usual, like something heavy has been quietly set down without you noticing at all. Your breathing finds its rhythm faster than normal. Your movements feel fluid and clean and almost effortless somehow. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a question begins to form that will not leave you alone. Why does this feel so good? Why did nobody ever tell me that this was even possible? Here is the full answer, and it starts by completely dismantling one of the most embedded lies in modern fitness. Most people carry an assumption so deep and automatic that they have never once stopped to even examine it. The belief that food eaten in the 30 minutes before a workout directly powers your muscles through the entire session. The banana grabbed quickly on the way out the door, the protein shake blended fast in the early dark, the handful of almonds eaten standing over the kitchen counter as a completely casual and thoughtless last-minute afterthought. The logic feels perfectly clean and simple. You eat, your body gets fuel, your muscles use that fuel directly. Intuitive, easy to understand, and almost entirely wrong in ways that genuinely change everything you thought you knew.
Digestion is not a rapid or immediate process. It is slow, layered, and remarkably step-by-step in how it actually works. That banana you just ate is still sitting in your stowage being broken down while you are already running. The nutrients from that food have not yet entered your bloodstream. They have certainly not reached your working muscles yet. The energy powering your run or your lift right now is not coming from what you just ate at all. It is coming from something far older, far more reliable, and far more powerful than anything sitting in your kitchen. Your muscles are fueled by internal reserves your body has been quietly and carefully building for exactly these moments always. Glycogen, stored carbohydrate held in your liver and muscle tissue, is ready to deploy within seconds of physical demand. And beyond that, there is the massive and largely untapped reservoir of energy locked inside your own stored body fat. Even a relatively lean person to fuel dozens of hours of continuous movement comfortably. All of that without consuming a single calorie from any food source at all throughout the entire effort. The food you eat before a workout is not powering you through your session. Your own body is powering you. It always was. It always will be. That has always been the deeper truth hiding underneath the conventional advice.
Fasted exercise is not about depriving your body of the fuel it needs to function and perform well at all. It is about teaching your body to unlock and fully access the fuel it has been quietly storing all along. When you begin training in a fasted state, something profound and lasting is set in quiet motion deep inside you.
Think of it as a complete system reboot happening silently and efficiently inside every single cell you have right now. If you have spent years always fueling before every workout, your metabolism has hardened into very predictable habitual patterns. It expects glucose. It waits for it with patience, like a machine waiting patiently for the correct input signal. For years, your body has been operating in a consistent environment of elevated insulin throughout almost every single waking hour. Insulin is the hormone released every single time you eat, and it signals your cells clearly that energy is abundant. It tells your fat cells that burning stored fat can be safely postponed indefinitely. There is always more food coming. There is never any urgent need to access the deep reserves your body has been slowly and steadily building. But in a fasted state, that familiar and constant signal completely disappears, and everything begins to shift inside you. Insulin drops to its lowest point in the last 24 hours, and your body finally receives the green light, the biological signal that finally gives your fat cells full permission to pull stored fatty acids into active circulation. But here is the part that nobody ever mentions in popular nutrition articles or widely followed fitness influencer content online. In the beginning, your cellular machinery has not yet been properly optimized to run efficiently on this type of fuel. The enzymes responsible for processing and converting fatty acids into usable energy are underdeveloped from years of relying on glucose. The mitochondria inside your cells have not yet been fully built up and trained for this particular metabolic task.
Like an engine that is run exclusively on one single fuel type being asked to switch to another mid-journey, there is a real and unavoidable adjustment period that comes first before the real benefits begin arriving for you. And it is uncomfortable enough and discouraging enough that the vast majority of people quit long before fully adapting. Those first few fasted sessions may feel noticeably heavier and more difficult than what you are normally used to experiencing. Your legs might drag more than usual. Your mental focus might flicker at moments you expect it to hold steady. A subtle fog might make already difficult moments feel considerably harder to push through than they normally would feel. And if you stop there and take that discomfort as proof that all the old warnings were absolutely right all along, you will miss everything that comes next. And what comes next is truly extraordinary in every possible sense of that word. Because underneath that temporary resistance and early discomfort, something remarkable is already being assembled quietly deep inside your biology. Studies published in the Journal of Physiology found that during these initial fasted sessions, your body is actively and purposefully upgrading. It is not just passively burning through whatever fuel it can find, it is building far better metabolic machinery. Your cells are being structurally rewired in ways that will permanently and meaningfully change how your body produces energy. The discomfort you feel during those early sessions is not failure, it is deep cellular renovation happening right now. And by the end of the very first full week, that renovation begins to visibly show in how you actually feel. The heaviness starts to lift noticeably. The fog begins to clear. Your energy levels start to stabilize in new ways. And for many people, more than the conventional nutrition industry would ever want to publicly acknowledge or openly advertise, those energy levels actually rise and improve beyond what they ever experienced during all their years of training while fed. This is when the hormonal landscape inside your body begins its most dramatic and genuinely powerful transformation yet. And this is exactly where the science becomes genuinely extraordinary in ways that should completely and fully surprise you. One of the most significant changes occurring inside you during fasted exercise is a powerful and dramatic surge in growth hormone. Not a modest or incremental bump, a dramatic elevation that reshapes the entire metabolic environment inside your whole body. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation found something that most popular fitness advice has completely ignored for years. The combination of fasting and exercise together can increase growth hormone production by 5 to 6 times its normal baseline. 5 to 6 times. This is not a small percentage increase. This is a complete biological emergency response from your body. Your body deploys growth hormone here as a powerful and targeted protective signal for the muscle tissue you have built. It places your muscle and bone density under clear guard while redirecting energy extraction efforts towards stored body fat instead. Growth hormone communicates with absolute, unmistakable clarity that your lean tissue is simply not available as fuel right now. At the very same time, your cells are becoming extraordinarily sensitive to insulin in the most beneficial way imaginable.
Not in a way that causes any harm at all, but in a way that fundamentally improves how you process food. When you finally break your fast and eat your post-workout meal, something genuinely remarkable happens to those incoming calories. Instead of spilling over into fat storage the way calories often do after eating in a sedentary or sluggish state, your body redirects those nutrients with surgical precision toward muscle repair, glycogen replenishment, and rebuilding every tissue you just challenged. You are becoming what metabolic researchers specifically and consistently call metabolically flexible. It is one of the most powerful health shifts possible. Your body develops the ability to transition smoothly and efficiently between burning sugar and burning fat as available fuel sources, to shift freely between fuel types based on what is actually available, rather than becoming locked rigidly into only one mode. Metabolic flexibility is increasingly recognized as one of the most meaningful and powerful indicators of genuine long-term human health, more predictive of your future wellness than body weight alone, and more important than many markers your annual checkup still measures. And it is something that most people living in the modern world have very quietly and very gradually and completely lost. Trained right out of their own biology by a food environment that ensures fuel is always available and never interrupted. Move forward to the end of your first full month of consistent fasted exercise, and something major permanently shifts inside you. The changes become fully measurable rather than just felt as a vague and pleasant improvement in how your mornings feel. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Nutrition, drawing carefully on dozens of carefully selected individual studies, found that training in a fasted state can increase the actual rate at which your body burns fat as primary fuel by 20 to 30% compared directly to training after eating a meal of any kind whatsoever beforehand. That is not a small or footnote-worthy or easily dismissed finding sitting quietly in an academic journal somewhere. That is a fundamental and lasting reorganization of how your entire metabolism functions on a daily basis, specifically for you. One that operates not just during your workout itself, but during rest, during sleep, during every single quiet hour between sessions. But here is the place in this story where things take a turn that genuinely and deeply surprises almost everyone, because the most profound changes unfolding through this practice are not happening in your muscles or your fat tissue at all. They are occurring inside your brain, and that single realization changes everything you previously thought fasted training was really about. When blood sugar is low and stable, your liver begins producing ketones from the breakdown of your stored body fat. Your brain receives a qualitatively and meaningfully different type of fuel through this process than it normally uses each day, one that it was, according to growing neurological evidence, genuinely and specifically designed to use efficiently and well. Ketones are remarkably efficient energy molecules. They generate more ATP per unit of oxygen consumed than standard glucose does. They produce less oxidative stress as a natural byproduct of being burned inside your cells for daily energy needs.
They burn, in a very real and measurable biochemical sense, significantly cleaner than glucose consistently does for your brain tissue. And beyond the fuel itself, the mild and controlled stress of fasted movement triggers something even more important for you personally. A protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, begins flooding your entire system during fasted morning movement sessions. This remarkable molecule actively supports the repair and ongoing maintenance of existing neurons inside your brain throughout your adult life. It encourages the formation of entirely new neural connections between different brain regions as you continue practicing fasted exercise consistently. It plays a direct and measurable role in your mood stability, your emotional resilience, and your capacity for deep focus. It is, in the most literal biological sense that modern science can currently offer, a genuine and direct growth signal for your brain. People who adapt fully to fasted exercise consistently describe a quality of mental clarity unlike anything else in their entire day. Not the wired and jittery alertness of caffeine, which borrows energy directly against tomorrow to pay for today's temporary demand. Not the fragile focus that evaporates the very moment something unexpected interrupts it and leaves you feeling scattered and deeply depleted. Something genuinely cleaner, something steadier and more reliable, something more expansive than almost anything available through any other single means. Thoughts arrive with unusual sharpness. Complex problems feel more approachable and far less overwhelming than they typically would for you.
The absorbed and frictionless mental state that psychologists call flow becomes noticeably easier to access and far easier to sustain. You are not just training your cardiovascular system and your physical muscles during these fasted morning sessions each day. You are actively and meaningfully participating in the maintenance and genuine enhancement of your own cognitive hardware every single time. By the 3-month mark of consistent and regular fasted training, the adaptations are no longer just felt as improvements. They have become fully structural, built permanently into the physical architecture of your cells in ways that do not disappear. Your mitochondria, the organelles inside every single cell that are responsible for producing the vast majority of your daily energy, they have become more numerous and dramatically more efficient through a process called mitochondrial biogenesis, triggered directly by your workouts. You can now generate significantly more energy with less metabolic waste, less oxidative stress, and far greater and more reliable sustained output. The engine has not simply been tuned and adjusted incrementally over time, it has been completely and fundamentally rebuilt from inside out. Long-term research highlighted in the New England Journal of Medicine points clearly to another major benefit that almost never gets mentioned. People who regularly and consistently practice fasted exercise show clear and measurable reductions in chronic inflammation markers throughout their bodies, specifically C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, both of which are strongly associated with accelerated biological aging and elevated chronic disease risk.
Lower levels of these two specific markers mean meaningfully reduced chronic disease risk, noticeably faster physical recovery, and better immune resilience. These are compounding health returns that accumulate quietly and invisibly over years and decades of consistent and committed fasted exercise practice, in ways that never show up dramatically in any single isolated workout, but eventually define the entire trajectory of your aging. And here is the part of this entire story that puts all of the science into its truest and largest context. For something very close to 99% of all recorded and known human history, something important and clarifying was always true. Physical effort and an empty stomach were never two separate experiences. They were always deeply and inseparably the exact same experience. Our ancestors did not consume a carefully balanced pre-workout meal before engaging in any form of physical activity or movement. They engaged in physical activity specifically and necessarily in order to find and then obtain their next meal each day. Movement came first every single time. Food came only afterward as the direct reward and result of that physical effort. They hunted through vast and unforgiving terrain. They tracked animals across enormous distances on foot through demanding and varied environments. They carried significant weight, solved complex spatial and tactical survival problems, and made rapid life-or-death decisions requiring sharp and full mental capacity. All of it happening in a state of metabolic depletion rather than metabolic abundance. All of it happening while genuinely hungry.
What this means from a clear evolutionary perspective is deeply clarifying in a way that completely reframes your understanding of yourself. The humans whose specific genes we carry in our bodies today were the clear survivors across hundreds of thousands of years. They were specifically and deliberately the ones whose minds sharpened and focused when food became genuinely scarce rather than dulling, whose muscles moved with real power and surprising efficiency, even when the last meal was many hours or days behind them, whose focus tightened under the actual pressure of real hunger rather than collapsing, because the stakes of collapsing were simply too final. We are designed at the deepest biological level available to our species to be most capable when we are hungry.
Modern life has completely and quietly inverted this deeply ancient and fundamental relationship without most of us ever fully realizing it. We have built an unprecedented environment of perpetual and completely uninterrupted food availability that has no parallel in all of human history. Our bodies, shaped carefully over hundreds of thousands of years by long natural cycles of genuine feast and genuine famine, are struggling profoundly to adapt to the unrelenting and entirely unprecedented feast that now defines daily life in developed countries everywhere. Fasted exercise does not reject the modern world or ask you to pretend you are living as a hunter-gatherer again. It selectively and intelligently reconnects you with biological patterns your body still recognizes completely at its deepest cellular and hormonal level. And it responds to those patterns with a speed and a power that should genuinely and honestly take your breath away.
Now, the full and honest picture requires complete transparency, because anything less would be a real disservice to you personally. Fasted exercise is a genuinely powerful and meaningful tool, but it is not universally superior for every person or every application. For genuinely high-intensity efforts, maximum sprint sessions, near-maximum strength work, and explosive interval training where absolute peak power matters most, research does carefully document a potential 10 to 15% reduction in peak performance when both glycogen and blood glucose are low. If your only specific goal in a given session is setting a new personal record where fractions of a second matter entirely, some quality carbohydrate before that particular session may genuinely serve your performance better than training fasted on that specific day. But for the vast majority of what most real everyday people actually do in their consistent training and exercise practice, fasted exercise works beautifully and effectively for all of it once full and proper metabolic adaptation has been given time to arrive. Steady cardio, recreational running, general and consistent fitness training, submaximal strength sessions that build the body over months and years. All of these activities benefit enormously from fasted training practice in ways that become increasingly clear over time and repetition. Not only does it work well across all of those activities once adapted, it often genuinely and measurably feels noticeably better. There are also specific and important circumstances where extra caution around fasted exercise is absolutely not optional and must be respected. Pregnancy and breastfeeding create significant and demanding metabolic requirements that make extended fasting inappropriate and something to avoid entirely during those periods. Anyone with a personal history of disordered eating should approach fasted exercise with great care, if they approach it at all, given the very real psychological complexity that can arise at the specific intersection of deliberate food restriction and structured physical exercise. Women with already low body fat percentages or high overall physiological and life stress loads should monitor themselves very carefully throughout. Extended fasted training in those specific circumstances may elevate cortisol to levels that begin interfering with reproductive hormone function over time. This can sometimes manifest as menstrual irregularities before any other visible or otherwise noticeable warning sign becomes apparent to the person. And for anyone currently managing type 1 diabetes, fasted exercise creates unpredictable blood glucose dynamics that make it genuinely and seriously dangerous. It should never be attempted without direct and ongoing medical supervision and a clearly established blood glucose management protocol in place. When you begin, start very conservatively and slowly to allow your body the real time it needs to adapt fully. A 30-minute brisk walk makes a perfect and very practical starting point for almost any person beginning this practice. An easy bike ride or any gentle movement that keeps you in what exercise physiologists call zone 2 heart rate, a heart rate range where fat oxidation is naturally at its absolute peak and metabolic stress remains productive rather than damaging. Drink water before and consistently throughout your session without exception and without waiting until you feel thirst arriving first. Consider adding a small, careful pinch of quality sea salt or a sugar-free electrolyte mix directly to your drinking water. Fasting lowers insulin, and lower insulin causes your kidneys to excrete considerably more sodium than normal throughout the session. Dehydration arrives faster than most people expect during fasted exercise, and catching it early makes a genuine and meaningful difference. When you finish your session, wait 30 to 60 minutes before eating your very first meal of the entire day.
That extended post-exercise window allows fat oxidation to remain elevated just a little bit longer before incoming nutrients arrive. It allows your growth hormone levels to stay elevated meaningfully longer before the normal post-workout hormonal response begins shifting downward. It also allows the quiet and valuable cellular cleaning process called autophagy to continue its important maintenance work on your biology. When you finally eat and break your fast, do so deliberately and thoughtfully with quality protein to support muscle repair first. Then add healthy fats and eventually carefully chosen carbohydrates to restore the glycogen your muscles use throughout your fasted session. You are not eating carelessly or desperately or reactively after your fasted session in the way you might initially expect. You are completing a deliberate and carefully designed biological cycle of meaningful stress and genuine recovery, depletion, and purposeful rebuilding. Each complete cycle leaves you measurably and genuinely more resilient and capable than the cycle that directly preceded it did.
This is not punishment for some past lifestyle failure. It is not deprivation theater designed to prove something about your character. It is not a test of how much quiet discomfort you can silently endure to demonstrate dedication to yourself or anyone else. It is biological maintenance in its most direct and powerful and elegant form. It is meeting your cells precisely where they are, giving them exactly the conditions they need to perform the cleanup work, the upgrade work, and the deep repair work, to remember capabilities and access reserves that constant and uninterrupted eating has been quietly and gradually suppressing for too many years. You are sending your body a message at the deepest biological level it knows how to clearly receive and truly understand. A message that says with consistency and calm, an empty stomach is not an emergency requiring immediate chemical intervention from outside. That hunger is not a crisis requiring panic. That everything needed to move with genuine power is already fully inside you, already stored, already waiting, already built into the very deepest architecture of your biology by hundreds of thousands of years of survival. You are not just burning fat during these sessions, though that certainly happens and compounds very meaningfully over consistent time. You are building a more resilient and capable metabolism, one that will serve you better with each and every passing year. You are developing the kind of deep insulin sensitivity that will protect your long-term metabolic health for decades specifically ahead of you. You are generating new and more powerful mitochondria that will serve your daily energy production and your overall vitality for years. You are triggering autophagy that keeps your entire cellular environment clean, functional, and biologically younger than your calendar age might otherwise suggest. You are cultivating the kind of metabolic flexibility that slowly and permanently frees you from rigid and exhausting meal timing dependency, from the relentless and constant need for external fuel just to feel like a fully functioning version of yourself through the day. These are not temporary effects. They are not feelings that fade conveniently once the initial novelty of something new wears off. They are structural and genuinely lasting changes to the fundamental way your biology actually operates at every cellular level within you. And they compound quietly and invisibly over time in ways that never make themselves loudly known in any single isolated workout. But they eventually define the complete and entire trajectory of how you age, how you feel, and who you truly become. They show up in the quality and depth of your sustained focus through a long and demanding afternoon at your work, in the remarkable and unexpected stability of your mood through a difficult and draining week that once would have completely broken you, in the consistent and reliable quality of your energy across an entire full day without the familiar crashes you once expected, and in the long and slow and beautiful arc of your overall health across an entire life that is still ahead. The science is clear, and it is consistently pointing in the same direction across many years of serious, careful research. The question was never really about whether fasted exercise actually works. The evidence on that point has been settled for a long time.
The question is only whether you are genuinely willing to test what the science says against your own lived experience, directly. Not as a permanent identity you must publicly declare,
not as a complete lifestyle overhaul requiring total commitment before you begin. Just once, tomorrow morning before breakfast, 20 minutes. Walk outside into whatever morning is quietly waiting for you out there. Notice your mind carefully and honestly. Notice your body. Notice what genuinely happens when biology is given the real space to remember. When you finally give yourself the honest chance to discover what your body was always completely and perfectly built to do.